All right, another part of your job as an investor, and my job, is that I have to stay on top of trends and notice what the market loves and what it's not loving. When it loves something, I want to love that thing too, because I want my money to work for me and I want to increase the value of my money and the value of my assets over time. And I want to notice when trends are falling out of favor too, so that I can exit from those stocks. Sometimes it might even have to be for a loss. Like, nobody is perfect. I am not perfect at picking stocks. I never will be. Sometimes I sell out of a stock too late. Sometimes I sell out of a stock too early. The idea isn't to beat myself up or for you to beat yourself up if you make a few bad decisions or you miss a beat here or there. The idea is just to notice more about how to keep yourself on track and make better decisions most of the time. That's how you win on the stock market. That's how I win on the stock market. So one of the huge trends in the market that was in 2023, started in 2023 in a big way, and is still really huge, is AI, artificial intelligence. It's been attracting big money to the stocks that are developing it. There's a lot of people that argue that AI is the next industrial revolution. I would tend to agree with that statement. You'd have to come up with your own conclusion there. But one of the reasons that I do believe this, and it's not something that I believe in a way that doesn't have any conviction or data behind it, is just a general observation that stocks that are not developing AI are not rising in share price as quickly as those that are. Those are just the facts. So I will give you an example. 6 years ago, Home Depot, awesome stock. Lowe's, awesome stock. There is nothing fundamentally different about these stocks or the business that they are doing. Like, their earnings and revenue are consistently up, but their share prices aren't skyrocketing the way that they used to. And you look at yourself and you look at these stock charts and you're going like, why is this happening? Why aren't these stocks that used to do so well for me, why aren't they doing as well anymore? And then you start to see that the other stocks that are in AI and tech are skyrocketing. And why is that? Well, it's because the institutions are going like, there's probably more money to be made by jumping on this AI thing right now than there is to be invested in home improvements and repairs and maintenance. And actually, natural disaster cleanup is another huge thing that Home Depot does as a company. So that's really interesting. They have contracts with the government that put money in Home Depot's pockets to kind of source new materials to recover from natural disasters. But that it just hasn't done anything. Those stocks haven't done a whole lot compared to these AI stocks. So that just shows me that AI is a massive trend on the stock market. I myself have wanted to be a part of it because I see it as a huge growth opportunity. You have to make up your own decisions on that, but you do have to follow the trends. If you want to become an investor that does really well and is making sort of those 100% returns in a year or two, or those 200% returns in 5 years, you have to notice what the trends are and you have to learn how to get on board with them. Okay. So another thing that I just want to talk about here is what happens if we're in a stock that isn't on trend anymore? That's bad. So we need to exit those stocks. So all of these trends have an end. A trend has an end, right? So AI is this huge boom right now. Will it stop being one day? I imagine it will. Is it a bubble? Probably. Will the bubble burst? Yes. Is it going to burst anytime soon? It doesn't seem like it based on the stock prices. How would we know if the bubble was starting to burst? We'd start seeing the 3-month charts go down. That would be our first clue. So do you see how this all works together? You see how this system works together? That's how I use it. So a trend has been that telecommunication companies have lost their share prices, lost value in their share prices, because they have been less competitive than they used to be. Okay, so if we think about, this is kind of wild to think about because how much the world has changed in the last 10 years. But 6 years ago, or 10 years ago, my parents had a cabin in a remote location and nobody could ever get cell service there except on certain cell networks. So we would actually have a preference of buying from that specific company because cell companies used to have like these maps on their TV commercials with like all the places that their cell would like cover, so that you could get a phone call in remote locations. And there would be like people like, oh, I'm with Sprint. Oh, I can't be with Sprint because AT&T is the only place that services my area. And there used to be this competition amongst them to like service the most amount of locations and get more coverage. And that's what they sold their services on. And there were stock prices would sort of reflect this. There was a lot of growth in that sector. There was a lot to draw you into a specific brand. They could have bragging rights about like, you can actually talk on the phone if you have our cell service, or we even provide international calling when you're overseas on vacation. We'll cover that in our price. But what has happened since then in the last 10 to 6 years till now is that all the cell service is the same. Everyone provides the same service. So that's not good for shareholders because now the only thing that they can do, these cell phone companies, is compete on price. Okay, they go like, it's a T-Mobile commercial on TV and they're all saying like, oh, AT&T is charging $100, but we'll get you in here for $85. And so what's happening is they're competing on price. The prices are coming down, which means they're taking in less revenue, which is not a good thing for shareholders. You see how that works? Because they're collecting less premium and from their customers, and then they don't have any money to feed back into the company. On top of this, the cell phone companies have not really been observant on the trends either. One of the things that they did as Netflix and Hulu and companies like Amazon were expanding and putting TV programming on the internet for smart TVs, is the cell phone companies did this weird thing where they decided to invest in cable TV companies, which everyone could see were falling out of favor. Why did they do this? I don't know why they did it, but as an investor, when I was seeing them doing this, I'm like, I am not going to buy your stock. You guys don't understand what the trends are. So if you don't understand what the trends are, or the companies that you're invested in don't understand what the trends are, I leave those companies. Like, you got to show me you know what you're doing in the modern world, okay? So, you want to stay on top of trends, and you want to stay on top of Yahoo Finance because they're going to tell you these little articles about like how this cell company is now buying a cable news company, and like you can go to yourself, this seems like a dumb idea. And then you can follow the charts and see over time whether the charts like start to line up with what that stock just did. Okay. The other thing that I have to consider as an investor is that I primarily invest in monopolistic companies. Okay. So monopolies are not necessarily good things for consumers, but they are awesome things for investors. So, like a quick Google search or jogging your memory for what the biggest companies in the world is like a great place to start researching stocks. So monopolistic companies have their hands in so many different aspects of our business and personal lives. And they constantly roll out new products and services for us to buy. They even like gobble up smaller companies. So you'll see this with a company like Amazon bought up Whole Foods. I mean, what haven't they bought, right? But Amazon is a great example of a monopolistic company. They have grocery delivery now. That's new. Like in the last month, they're going to deliver groceries to your house. They're offering like a free Grubhub like subscription so I can get food that's made by restaurants in the community delivered to my house. I mean, they're always rolling out something new. They have AWS Web Services, which is basically like if you are getting streaming data, a lot of times that is done through a third party, like Netflix might stream their data actually through Amazon Web Services. So Amazon Web Services is like this huge thing that a lot of people don't even know Amazon has, but it's Amazon, how they service large corporations. In addition to people like you or me who were just ordering a new can opener on Amazon. Like, I think it's kind of bonkers the amount of things that Amazon owns. They own Whole Foods Market. They bought that a few years ago. Like, I don't see a situation where this company shrinks at all. I believe they're even starting to open a part of their business, which is going to deliver prescription drugs to your home. And I was thinking, gosh, I would like that. I hate going to the pharmacy. So there are just so many things that this company can do, and they keep doing it. So like when I look at that company, I say to myself, gosh, I want a piece of this. I mean, they're in everything. And also when a company like that has its hands in so many different pockets, experiences a bad sector in the industry, like something bad happens within a certain sector of the industry, like let's say people are no longer streaming anymore because I do not know why. That's only one sector of Amazon's business, but they have like 40 other sectors that they're collecting earnings and revenue in. So the institutions look at that and they go like, oh, well, that's not really going to affect them very much because they have all these other things going on. But if people stop streaming as much, and we were showing that data and how it would affect it to Netflix, it affects Netflix in a bigger way, right? It's because Netflix only has one way that it collects earning and revenue, and that's from streaming. So do you see how Amazon is just like this way bigger company and it's monopolistic? There are other monopolistic companies out there. Apple's a really good one. Like if I think about separating my life from Apple, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for me to do that. Right now I'm recording on an Apple computer. Here's my iPhone. I have all my data stored on the iCloud. I have Apple TV. It's just it goes on and on and on how much Apple is integrated into my life. So that's another clue as to what a monopolistic company is. Like, can you easily subtract that company from your life or not? If you can't, then that's a monopolistic company. Another thing is if you can't find a monopolistic company or you're not liking that company for some reason, I know people that even work within a company that they are invested in and they can't options trade that company because it's against the rules. So they need to look around for a different company because they can't options trade that specific company that they work for, which makes sense. If you can't find a monopolistic company, you can look for an industry dominator. So is the company a leader in its industry? It should be. We don't want to, again, I'm going to use the SoFi as an example. SoFi just isn't as large of a bank as Chase. It's just not. So like if I was to be invested in a company, what am I going to go for? The like young new company who's like trying to compete with big giant? That's a heavy boulder to move. And I don't want to move boulders with my money, and I don't want to stick my money in those companies that have like a lot to prove and are the underdog. I want to go with what is proven and true and what the institutions like. There's that word again. Okay. So the reason you want to be in an industry dominator is because you want to be in the company that's blowing the competition out of the water. So if you are interested in investing in a sector or an industry that doesn't have an industry dominator, for me, I just don't get involved in that sector. Like if in energy, for example, like oil, I don't really like investing in oil stocks because I'm like, is there really an industry dominator here? I mean, maybe a little, but there's not like a clear one. So I generally just steer away from those industries in general. Like I don't subscribe to the idea that I should have a portfolio that is super balanced between like 15 different sectors of the world that we're living in, because I only want to own companies that I understand and where there's a clear monopoly or a clear industry dominator.